All right, thank you so much. It is now 7 p.m. and this is the last Monday of the month. And guess what? We're back here again with our Alumni Speaker Series. So good to see all of you. And as a reminder, it's always safe to sit with your backs against the wall and make sure that you know exactly what's going on around you. So without further ado, we would like to now call on Ms. Beth Sands, who is a 2019 alumna, with our welcome.
Thank you, Ms. Thompson, and a pleasant good evening to all of you. I am so proud to welcome you to this month's virtual Distinguished Alumni Speaker Series. During these sessions, our attendees are able to witness firsthand the calibre of graduates who have passed through the doors of the Bahamas Technical and Vocational Institute. The series was established to allow us to showcase our outstanding alumni and to raise the visibility of our institute. Internal and external audience are welcome, and we are indeed happy to have you share this space with us. Thank you so much for joining us, and I encourage you to call a friend and ask them to sign on. You won't regret it. Again, I say welcome.
And thank you very much. Thank you, Beth.
You're welcome.
I'd like to acknowledge at this time, I saw that AVP Veronica Cawley from Grand Bahama joined. We're so happy to see you. And of course, we are happy to have all of you, faculty, staff, friends, alum, all of you. It's just a pleasure to have you with us. Okay, so we now move on and we will have the introduction of the speaker. Now, the person who's going to do the introduction is very special to us. He serves as the chair of construction and mechanical trades at BTVI, and he is at the Freeport campus. And he was a 2021 Distinguished Alumni Awardee, most recently, and the ceremonies that we had. And so it's my pleasure now to call on Mr. Kenton Roca with the introduction of the speaker for this evening.
A very pleasant good evening to each and every one of you. It's a joy and a privilege of mine to honored to be able to introduce our speaker for this evening. Born in humble beginnings in the settlement of Woodkey, Abaco, the 9th of 10 children, the 5th of 6 girls, received early education at Foxtown Primary School, moved to Grand Bahama at the age of 12, where she graduated from Freeport High, the now Bishop Michael Eldon School. After graduating from high school, she worked several odd jobs, including short order cook, a pump attendant, cashier, and housekeeper, just trying to earn a living and find a niche. In 1995, she landed a job at the Chutkey Club in the Berry Islands. After working at the resort for 2 years, she felt she was on a good path and decided to enroll in the hospitality management program at the Bahamas Hotel Training College, which later merged with the College of the Bahamas, or COB, which is now University of the Bahamas. After a number of years in hospitality, she recognized the trending change in the industry in Grand Bahama and decided she needed a change of direction. This led to her enrollment in carpentry at the Bahamas Technical and Vocational Institute. She later went on to complete courses in electrical installation, plumbing, and HVAC. In 2015, our speaker was given the opportunity to teach the carpentry section of the Fresh Start General Maintenance Program. After teaching a few sessions of Fresh Start, she enrolled in the Adult and Workforce Education and Training course at the University of the Bahamas, where she graduated with a diploma in 2018. Our speaker is now an adjunct instructor at BTVI, where she teaches courses related to the construction trades, such as Carpentry 1, Carpentry 2, Roofing 1, Roofing 2, Student Success, Trade Career Path, and anything related to the construction industry, our speaker is able to teach. As a matter of fact, she completed her craft instructor course in the NCCER, where she also is teaching courses related to construction in the NCCER program. The thing I present to you, and I'm proud to do so, in which she came from as a student of the construction trades here in Grand Bahama, and now an adjunct instructor, and now our guest speaker. I present to you our very own Ms. Debbie Mills.
Yay! Thank you very much for that, Mr. Roker. And I must say, I consider it an honor and a pleasure to be chosen to do this out of this great institute. As Mr. Roker mentioned, I came from as humble as you can come from. I was raised in a single parent family, and my mommy was one of the strongest and most industrious women I know. My whole life growing up, I remember my mommy, even though she had to hold on to a full-time job, I knew she had 10 children to support us. She also did things on the side. My mommy, she used to chicken in the bag. She cooked, she baked, she sewed. And even to this day, right now, at 83 years old, she's still known for some of the best pineapple and coconut pie you can find in Abaco. And up until last year, during the pandemic, she was still sewing uniform for the schools in Abaco. So that's the stock I came from. So I'm a hard worker, and I've always been, and I believe in that. Like I said, I came from a single parent home, and when I came out of high school, the odds of going to college was slim to none. So I had to find a way to make a living in the world. And upon graduation, I went back home to Abaco, and one of my cousins who lived in Nassau was like, listen, there's nothing here for you in Abaco. I'm going to take you to Nassau. So she took me to Nassau, and that's where I worked on those odd jobs. For those of you who live in Nassau, like during the early 90s, you may remember Jake and Shake. There was a restaurant called Jake and Shake, I think, in Kennedy Sub. I worked there. I used to work as a pump attendant at the Texaco gas station on Carmichael Road. I had to do what I had to do to survive. And after I attempted to join the immigration or defense force, but that didn't work out. So I ended up going back home to Abaco, and that's where I landed what I consider to be my very first real job, working as a cashier at Solomon's Wholesale in Abaco. At the time, that was before it was owned by Abaco Markets Limited. It was just Solomon Brothers, and they sold basically wholesale items. While I was working at Solomon's as a cashier, there was a young man I knew who worked at the hotel, and he came to me and he said, Debbie, I'm looking for someone to go down to Chub Key. I have some friends who manage a home down there, and they're looking for someone to work as a housekeeper. So if you know anybody who may be interested in moving to the Berry Islands, just let me know. They'll be in town next week, so just let me know if they're interested. So I thought about it. So I went back to him and I said, Timmy, you know what? I'm willing to give this a chance. So when they came to the island, the couple, their name was Joyce and Mike. I met them. We had a good conversation. They were impressed, and they said, okay, we'd like to give you the chance. They gave me a week to get everything organized and get everything back, everything together. Then they came back the following week, picked me up, and I went trucking off to Chub Key. I had no idea where Chub Key was, and I only know Berry Islands to be a little dot on the map in this great Commonwealth of the Bahamas. But guess what? I was willing to give it a chance, so I packed up and I went to Chub Key. And so I worked with them for a few months, but that didn't pan out. And Chub Key was private, so you couldn't be on the key unless you were working. So at the time, they needed the resort itself. This was one of the private homes I went there to work at. But the resort itself, they were now looking for someone to work in their laundry department. I was already on the key, and one of the guys who was there, he was like, okay, why don't you go and talk to them and see if you can get the job? I said, okay, fine. So I went I spoke to them and they gave me the opportunity. So I was working in the laundry at the Chubcake Club. While I was in the laundry, the general manager, his wife, for some reason, she took a liking to me. So she used to come down there to the laundry and she would be talking to me and we would have those conversations. I do in my laundry. I iron up all of my uniform, the uniform for the staff and everything. And then, so she just used to come down there and we would just talk. And then one day she came down, she said, Debbie, say, I would really like to talk to you. I said, okay. She says, the young lady we now have in the office is not working out. So I would like to give you the chance to work in the office and then we would move her out and put her in the laundry. And I'm like, well, I'm game, so let's do it. So I ended up working in the office at the Chubcake Club. So now I went from working in the laundry, I was now working in the front, on the front desk. So now I'm dealing with check-ins, checkouts, and then food and beverage and all of that. So that's when I got my feet wet in the hospitality industry. And so the general manager there, so what he did was he enrolled me in some distance learning process in front office operations. Back then, a lot of people referred to it as correspondence because distance learning, there was no internet and there was no Zoom or anything else. So basically it was correspondence. So I signed up for that. I completed it. I successfully completed that course. And he saw that I was a learner. And so what he would do is he would always come and say, how busy are you? What are you doing? So he would come and he would teach me something else. So every time he teach me something, when it's time to do that again, he would come back and he would say, do you remember what I showed you last week or last month? And then I was like, yeah, I did. He said, okay, but here's another one. I need you to do this for me. And so once I got that down, then he would turn around and he would give me something else. So by the time I left Chubcake, I was not just working on the front desk doing the check-ins and checkouts for the boats and the vessels anymore. So what I was also doing now was he taught me how to do a lot of his end of month reports. I was also doing food and beverage control. I was ordering for the restaurants and all of that. So the more willing I was to learn, the more he was giving me to do. So I'm like, you know what? I could see myself doing this. So I packed up and I went to Nassau and I ended up in the hospitality management program at the Hotel Training College. And so now it wasn't just my feet wet anymore, I was all soaked up in it. So I completed that. Then I relocated back here to Grand Bahama in 1999. I was the very last graduating class from the Bahamas Hotel Training College. That was the class of 2000. 2001, they were in the process of merging with COP right then. So in 2001, there was no longer Bahamas Hotel Training College. There was now the College of the Bahamas, and then they had the School of Hospitality as a part of that. So after I completed that, I went and I got my job at the hotel. I was working at Pelican Bay, and I worked at Pelican Bay for a number of years. I started on the front desk. And then I ended up working on I went up working the night shift. I was working as a night auditor, and I did that for like 4 years, 4.5 years straight. While I was working that night shift, I wanted to do something on the side. I wanted a side hustle so that I could earn some extra income. And I got enrolled in my first construction related course. I signed up for the professional development course in tiling. So I completed that. It was a 12-week course that I did. And while I liked the tiling, the reality of it was too hard on my knees and my back. It wasn't working for me. So I still do my tiling, but now my tiling is limited to walls, countertops, and backsplash. I don't do floors. My knees and my back, they can't handle it. They say, nope, that's not happening. So that was my first taste of the construction industry. Now at this time, I realized that things were starting to change in the hospitality industry. I grew up here in Freeport, and I knew what the tourism industry was here in Freeport. So the Princess had already closed, and they would be at another resort that was here. but they didn't have the same, that same quality of tourists that Bahamas Princess had. And then we had our Lucaya, which was new, which was fairly new, had just not long reopened. But I could sense that something was different. So while that was going on, and then another thing that was happening with me was that I moved into the house where there's a lot of work that needed to be done. Now, I would find that I would go out, I would buy material, and the material would be fairly cheap. But then now when it came to the labor was a killer. So with the combination of that, and even with all of that, I still wasn't ready to go into construction. I knew that I wanted to get out of the hospitality industry. So I said, you know what, I'm just going to learn how to make some cabinets. And I went to BTVI and I filled out the form for the cabinet course for the professional development. However, in Freeport, the climate in Freeport is a little, I don't know, but it's a little strange, and the demand just wasn't there. So by this time I was working at Kelly's hardware store as a cashier, and Mr. Scott, who's the carpentry teacher, he would come in there. And so I would say, man, Mr. Scott, I said, when you're gonna run this, cabinetry class, are you ready to do that? He said, I don't know. He said, it all depends on the enrollment of the students. Why don't you just sign up for the carpentry class? I said, man, I don't want to do no 2-year program. I just want to do something quick and get out. And so Mr. Scott, and I care every time he came into Kelly's, I was on him, when y'all gonna run this program? So finally I took his advice and I went to BTVI and I filled out the application form for carpentry for the carpentry certificate program. And that was the beginning of me working in the construction industry. All right. And so I did carpentry, and one of the great things I can say with BTVI, for most of my courses I did, I was, well, all of them, I was the only female. But I found that I got so much support from the staff at BTVI. My instructors, it's almost like they were excited to have a female in actually doing their program. Now I will tell you, I did have challenges elsewhere. While I was still working at Kelly's, it was a hardware store, so I was coming into contact with contractors and people who work in the industry on a regular basis. And so I would talk to them as like, hey, what about the possibility of giving me an opportunity to do, I'm at BTVI, I'm doing my class. And that's where I met most of the negativity. I actually had one contractor said to me, man, I can't put you on my site. If I put you on my site, my fellas, them ain't gonna work. I said, well, then fire the fellas and get girls to work. All right. So, but that there is some of the things that I face. Like I said, fortunately, I never had to deal with that. I know some persons may have had different experience, but for me, I found so much support from the staff there. Like I said, it's almost like they were thrilled to have a female actually in the construction trades. And I went through carpentry. I did carpentry, I did electrical installation, HVAC, and then I did plumbing. And for each of those courses, I was the only female in that program. So when I finished my last program, which was plumbing, and while I was still a student, actually, that's when the opportunity presented itself. Ms. Veronica Colley, VP for Northern Bahama, she called me to the office, and I was like, okay, what could Ms. Colley be calling me for? Because I'm still a student at that time. I'm wondering what kind of trouble I could possibly be in, right? So she calls me in the office and she said, Ms. Mills, we're about to start a fresh start program and we need someone to teach the carpentry section for that, right? And you were highly recommended by 2 of your instructors. And I'm like, really? Me? Because at this time, I really, even though I was doing these programs, I really didn't see myself seriously that deep in the construction industry, not even teaching it. And so I said, well, I guess I'll give it a chance. Let's see how it goes. So she gave me all the information I needed, and I got some advice from Mr. Scott on where to go and what to do and all of that. And I taught the first session. I guess it was successful because when they started that next session, Ms. Colley called me back. We getting ready to start that next session of a fresh start, and we're going to be doing carpentry this is or whatever the case may be. So, okay, so now, and I'm thinking, all right, so now I have an opportunity to teach. So maybe now I can do something. So I went searching around UB and looking around to see where I can get some certification in for teaching. And then I came across this program that they had at the University of Bahamas. It's called Adult and Workforce Education and Training. So what I did was I went and I enrolled in that. And so even doing that, I had some challenges because they had never run that program in Freeport before. And I was the only student in that program. All right. So then I ended up having to do a lot of independent studies. All right. But listen, I already made up my mind. I tell you, my mommy was industrious. My mommy was determined, and I didn't hear her ability to cook and bake and sew, but I got that strong will from her, and I got that determination from her. And so I was like, I don't need this. I'm gonna go through it, and I came through it. Thank God I made it. I made it through, and so now I sit before you right now. I am an adjunct instructor teaching in the trades. And if someone had told me 10 years ago that I would be working in construction and that I would be teaching construction trades, I'm telling you, I would have thought they were off their rockers. But sometimes you just don't know. You just don't know. You just have to be prepared to take those chances, and you have to be prepared to follow. And so that's my advice for anyone who may have doubts about working in the trades. I know that a lot. When I was growing up, it was like people who worked in trades, the general consensus was that people who worked with their hands because they couldn't work with their brains. That was the general consensus. So I am here to just that you can see that that's totally different. I can work with my brains and my hands. I choose to work with my hands. All right. And I love doing what I do. All right. And so I just would encourage you, and don't allow yourself to be deterred by anyone's perception or anyone putting you in a box. I'll borrow something here from Dr. Miles Monroe. I love Dr. Miles. And he gave an illustration, and he was referring to a vehicle. The vehicle is made to go, some vehicles up to 200 miles an hour. The manufacturer designed these vehicles to go that fast. So the potential for a car to go, my car right now, I'd have a potential to go to 180 miles an hour. I live in Grand Bahama. The speed limit is 45 miles an hour on the road. So right now, so I am restricted to driving at 45. Sometimes I'm driving up East End.
You seem to have muted.
I think she froze.
System froze.
Okay, that's technology for you. Let's give her a minute to sign back in. While we're waiting for her to sign back in, I have a BTVI cap for the person who can tell me where she received her early education. She gave the name of a primary school. So I have a BTVI cap for the person who can tell me where she received that early education. You can feel free to enter it into the chat. I'd also like to recognize that, Francita Ramming said Foxtown Primary School. And you're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. Absolutely right. So Francita, we're going to need you to tell me how we're going to get this cap to you, okay? There you are. Okay.
I'm back in.
Yes, you are. And you dropped off when you were telling us that your car can go 180 miles per hour, but in Grand Bahama,
Yeah.
you usually do 200. That's where you dropped off.
Thank you for that reminder. Yeah, I'm so sorry about that. I just got booted. I don't know what happened. Right. And so we drive our vehicle, and because of restrictions that's imposed by our law and by our transportation, our car never do what it's supposed to do. But the manual says that this car can make 180 miles an hour. And so we have a manufacturer and we have a manual, and that manual says that we are fearfully and wonderfully made, and we can do all things through Christ who strengthens us. So me being a woman, if I had listened to the restrictions, girls ain't supposed to, a woman's place is, I wouldn't be where I am today. So I'm encouraging you to do away with the restrictions, open that baby up and see what she good for, see what she can do. So sometimes you just have to do away with the restrictions. Now, I'm not telling you go open your vehicle up on those highways and also, and then when you get a ticket, you tell the police, Miss Mills told me to open it up. But you understand where I'm coming from. So sometimes we have to rise. You always can't listen to the restrictions. You have to rise above it. All right. And so you have to you have to realize that you have the potential to do so much, and don't limit yourself by what other people tell you can or can't do. You have to find out what you have to tap into yourself, and you have to find you need to tap into yourself, and you need to find out what you are really capable of. All right. And so that's my advice. And don't mind them saying that you're working with your hands because you aren't smart enough to do nothing else. That's not true. That's a myth. All right. Okay. And so I want to thank you all for your time and for your attention. And I'm open for any questions anyone may have.
Wonderful. As I scroll to see whether I got any questions from you, listen, something came to mind as you spoke. And you spoke about going to Chubkey. You jumped on that boat or that plane and you had no idea where you were going. You also spoke about later on going to different classes, pursuing different programs. You spoke about how you were the first person, or you were enrolled at UB in that adult learning program, the AWET program, I think you referred to. What is it that drove you? What do you have to say to our students, other BTVI alum? What is it that kept you going?
That same determination I told you I got from my mommy, and that desire to reach my maximum potential. And it was, I'll tell you now, it was very encouraging. I had great support staff at BTVI. The mere fact that I had instructors who recommended me to teach said a lot. The mere fact that VP Veronica Colley was willing to take the chance with me says a lot. So that was like a booster. And that just gave me that extra driving force. And then I've encountered, I've never done a class at Nassau, but I'm telling you, the instructors here at Grand Bahama, I see Mr. Prince is here. I take one thing from Mr. Prince and I take that into my classroom. Mr. Prince uses humor, and that works. And I find that I incorporate humor into all of my class because it works, it breaks the ice, and it makes, and it kind of loosens the environment for the students.
There was something else that you said. You said at one point that you noticed that there was a change in the hospitality industry. Please tell our alum, tell the students, tell everyone present how important it is, or how important is it to recognize change and to change with the times, and how has that factored into your success today?
You have change is inevitable, right? Everything changes. And if we never experienced it before, this COVID-19, this pandemic should have taught us that things change. And if you don't adjust, you will get left behind. Like I said, I grew up in Freeport during the 80s. And at that time, they had Princess Properties here. And, Princess Properties was associated with the cruise, and they had their own airline and everything. And so they used to have these junkets coming in all hours of the day, all hours of the night. So I knew what tourism was in Freeport. I knew what the bazaar was. Every Christmas you go to the bazaar, it was lit right up with red dasher. And I could see the difference, and I can see the downward trend. I can see hotels, I can see resorts closing down, and I can see their occupancy. And I'm like, things are changing. Casinos having struggling to bring in high rollers. And so I basically had to reinvent myself. And fortunately, I was able to find that in construction, because I wanted something that I can do, that I can work for myself. And that afforded me that opportunity. Now I'm working for myself. I started my own company this year, Handyman Home Solutions. And I don't call myself a general maintenance company, because I do more than just general maintenance. I call it Home Solutions because one of the things I'm looking into exploring right now, everybody wants to do something fresh, freshen up their homes or whatever the case is. But they may want a new kitchen, but they can't afford new cabinets and everything. You can go in there and resurface, refinish, and you can get a new kitchen without having to necessarily buy a whole bunch of new cabinets. So that's one of the things I'm exploring. And with my skills that I learned at BTVI, earlier this year, in March of this year, I was able to build a 12 by 16 one-bedroom tiny home from the ground up with the help of a few of my friends for manpower. But I was able to. I laid that out from the ground up. I laid out the floor. I built my floor. I framed up all of my walls. I framed my trusses, and that was my greatest accomplishment so far in construction. All right. So, yeah, and cabinets. I love doing my cabinets. I just finished a cabinet build and install, and it's all thanks to BTVI. I'm telling you, one thing I realized is that every time I conquer one thing, every time I cross over one threshold, that gives me motivation and makes me believe I can cross the other one. And so that's my driving force. So every hurdle I get over, that gives me the determination. And I realize, listen, I got over this one, I can get over the next one too.
Wow, that's powerful. And let me tell you, I must commend you. Handy mom. When I first saw that, I was like, wow, okay, because we're accustomed to hearing handy man, handy mom. Wow, kudos. There's a question. Now we know that growing up, you got a little girl. First of all, you put in a bunch of pink, and then the next thing you do is you buy her one Barbie doll or 2 or 3, right? The guy, the little boy, you give him a truck, or you give him the little sword and a hammer and the nail. So the question is, what advice and encouragement would you give to parents who do not allow their daughters to pursue carpentry in high school?
I would encourage any parent to allow your children to be who they are. And if that means a girl having to take up a hammer and a drill, let her take up that hammer and a drill. Because I feel like we all have hidden gifts. We all have gifts in us. And so we have to be allowed to develop those gifts. And when that doesn't happen, there's nothing wrong with conforming, but sometimes you have to let people develop and find out who they are. So I would encourage you to, they may be interested in doing it as a toddler, but by the time they get a little bit older, they may want to go a separate path. But like I said, with that story back to the vehicle, those are restrictions. Girls are supposed to, boys do this, girls do that. A woman's place is. These are all restrictions that are imposed. So I was like, don't put those restrictions on your children. Let them be who they are. All right. And I'm a strange character. Of all the instruments in the world, you know which instrument I play? I'm a drummer. All right. So what happens if they told me, oh, listen here, you girls ain't supposed to knock no drums. I knock drums and I work in construction trade, and I am all woman.
I have a question.
Yes,
When you
ma'am.
got tired of the hospitality industry, then you decided you're going to try some trades. So you spoke about tiling, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Why BTVI? Of all of the other places, I mean, you could have gone perhaps and all of the other things. Why did you choose BTVI? And tell me what was your biggest takeaway from having attended BTVI?
BTVI, listen, it's technical and vocational. We're best to go to get technical and vocational education than a technical and vocational institute. And BTVI had the reputation, even before they became BTVI, I knew them from back in the day when they were the Industrial Training Center and the National Training Center. So I knew, I was familiar with them from way back then. So and I knew what they were capable of. I knew people who went to ITC back in the day, and I know the skills that they came out with. So I'm like, okay, I'm gonna go to BTVI. All right. So, and I wanted now that hands-on. All right. I didn't want to just, just like theory. I want to be able to be in there and doing what I was doing while I do as I learned. And so I ended up at BTVI. My biggest takeaway from BTVI has been the level of confidence that I have gained through, and most of it came from the way I've been handled by the institute itself and my instructors. For those of you who teach, it's so important that you try to work with that confidence with our students. Sometimes we come across students who are not as confident, but we can make a big difference in that student's career and in their path. And that before I came to BTVI, when I went to the hotel training college, I was not a very good student in high school. And I did poorly at math. And I did my first math program. I had a math instructor, and he was like, the first quiz he gave, he came back to me and he brought that and he said, you can do so much better than this. And I realized that there were so many little minor errors that I made that caused me to lose points. That changed my whole mindset towards me and math. And right now, I'm teaching a math class. I'm teaching trade estimating. I used to fail math in high school. But sometimes I had that one teacher who made me realize that you aren't as bad as you think you are. And I got a lot of that from I must say I got a lot of support from my instructors at BT. I can't praise them enough.
Very good. Well, I have another question. You mentioned that at some points you faced negativity, and from time to time you're still facing negativity, perhaps due to stereotypes. What do you say to people, not only females, because sometimes, we have males who may choose a trade area that's not traditionally considered to be a male area. So what do you say? What advice do you give to fellow alums, BTVI students, and of course, anyone who's listening and who joined here? What do you say to them when faced with negativity? How should they respond? Give advice. How did you do it?
Stay in the game. Sometimes you have to change the game plan. Stay in the game. I love football. If you have a running game and that running game ain't working, you got to pass that ball and put that ball in the air. So sometimes you may have to change the game plan, but you got to stay in the game.
There was something else you said, and I see a question that's speaking to it. You said that you used to nag poor Mr. Scott, whoever he is, wherever he is. You told us just now, you used to nag him. Every time you saw him, you nagged him. You asked him, when you going off for the course? But how important is it to be persistent?
It's very important to be persistent. And sometimes too, even with that persistence, sometimes it's important to listen and take advice from others, because he advised me on a number of occasions to just sign up for the carpentry certificate program. I'm thinking, I don't want to spend 2 years in school. But I finally took his advice and look at, and I went back and I went back and I went back. And it was to the point where my family was like, every time an invitation came out for another graduation, it was like, another one. So the persistence is good. And while it's important to stay focused on your direction and what you want, sometimes it's okay to step back and listen to advice from others, because I took his advice and it paid off for me. And it took me on a path that I never imagined I would have been on.
So for those of you who haven't picked up as yet, Ms. Mills is resident in Grand Bahama, and she spoke extremely highly of our colleagues and of course of our campus in Grand Bahama. Kudos to you. Tell us, what were your best times as a student? And goodness gracious, you were a student several times. You graduated in 2013, 14, 15, 16, right? From different programs. What were your best times, you'd say, the most memorable times as a student at the BTVI in Grand Bahama?
Some of my most memorable times, I'll be honest with you, was in that carpentry workshop. I did all the other course and I love everything I do, but I find that carpentry, that is my passion. That's where my heart is, and that's where my strength is in everything that I do. I do manual electrical and plumbing, but carpentry, I will take on anything when it comes to carpentry.
I saw someone ask about cabinets, building kitchen cabinets.
Yes,
build
ma'am.
kitchen cabinets.
Yes, ma'am.
I can't help to go back to the house. Is it a real house? Is it a real house or a dog house?
Yes, it's a 12. I wish I would show you. It's a 12 by 16, 1 bedroom, 1 bath with a kitchen. I have a kitchen. It's not quite completed yet, but it is a 1 bedroom, 1 bath, and 12 by 16, 1 bedroom. And it's framed, the floor is framed with wood, and so is the walls is framed with wood. And I have instead of using plywood, I use durock as the sheeting for it.
Okay, interesting. What would you say if you can choose one thing? What would you say throughout your career, particularly the trade areas that you've pursued? What is your greatest accomplishment?
My own company that afforded me the ability that I can, while I love my teaching, and that has afforded me the ability that I can go there, I can work on my own, I can do something for myself. And that makes me proud, because I got that entrepreneur. I didn't even know I had it. I got that entrepreneurial spirit from my mom. And I have a sister in this group, and she can attest to that, because she does the same thing. She got our side hustle going too. So that is a part of who we are, and that determination. And so that has been the greatest thing for me at BTVI.
I'll give you an opportunity for a humble brag, something that you may not have told us about yourself yet, but something that you can't let us go without knowing. Tell us that one thing that you want to boast about, that we ought to know, especially given that you're an alum of the Bahamas Technical and Vocational Institute.
A humble brag. I don't know. I don't know. I have to think about that one. You caught me off guard on that one. A humble brag. But I'll tell you one thing. I'm mean when it comes to building my cabinets. Someone asked about cabinets. I learned from one of the best. I learned from Mr. Scott. And I can handle myself when it comes. Listen, a humble brag. I'm like this. I have the confidence, and what I can do, and I do it well. I'm good at what I do. So that would be my humble brag.
Finally, if you could put in one little commercial for BTVI, if you could put in one little commercial, do a little commercial right now and tell everybody who is in this space who has not yet signed up or who has already graduated and thinking about coming back and who may have a child who is into technical education and they were not quite sure, give an advertisement for BTVI right now.
I got steal from Nike. Just do it. Listen, BTV, enrolling in BTVI, especially with the trades, it's a win-win situation, and that will open opportunities that unlike you can imagine. I'm a prime example of that. All right. So please don't hesitate, enroll trades. No offense to all of the other good stuff, but trades are the way to go. Enroll in those trades. Listen, I'll be honest with you, right? During the lockdowns, you realize that tradespersons were never out of work. They were working straight through. That's all I'm saying. And if that's not motivation enough.
Wonderful.
Yes,
Finally, if you had to do it all again, would you choose the route of trades?
Yes, ma'am. If I had to do it all over again, if I could go back, knowing then what I know now, I would have done trade from the get-go.
That is
I would have done BTVI from the beginning.
wow.
But then again, everything, including my years in the hospitality, it all added up to make me the person that I am today. So I probably would just do it the same. I probably would, yeah. But it's I feel like my years in the hospitality industry contributed to my personality and helped me to be the person that I am, and that spills over in my classroom. So I don't think I would want to do away with that.
All right, excellent, excellent. And I haven't forgotten, I have a cap. I have a cap for Francita Ramming. Francita Ramming guessed which primary school you went to. So we have a BTVI cap. So Ms. Ramming, I saw your note that you are in Freeport. So I'm gonna have to get that cap to AVP Corley in Freeport for you. So give us a few days and we're gonna get that cap over there for you, okay? I would also, before we go on, I also want to recognize the presence of our Vice President, Dr. Linda Davis, who joined during the time that you were speaking. Dr. Davis, we are so happy that you are with us again this evening. And
I couldn't miss it. I couldn't miss it. Thank you so much, Ms. Mills. It was a pleasure.
Thank you very much, ma'am. It was a pleasure here as well.
Wonderful. And I also saw our academic dean, Dr. McPhee. So yes. Yes, Dr. McPhee, you can feel free to say a word if you wish. Okay, she perhaps stepped away. Okay, so now, thank you again. And without further ado, I will now call on Mrs. Laurie Tucker, who will give the thank yous, the alumni updates, and our wrap up. We're so happy that so many of you are here. And Mrs. Tucker, take it away.
Good evening, all. What an enlightening session. Thank you, Mrs. Mills, for showing us that Winston Churchill was right when he said that to improve is to change, but to be perfect is to change often. The many changes that you have undergone have helped to transform you into the courageous, successful woman that you are today. Thank you for sharing your story and continue to make us BTVI proud. Now for alumni updates. We are grateful for all the alumni who participated in the 2021 virtual RBC Race for the Kids. A total of $18,000 was raised, and we are thankful to RBC Royal Bank for their continued support. Medals were distributed on Saturday past. The much anticipated BTVI alumni brand items are here. We have them in the office. We have lanyards, we have hot and cold tumblers, we have bumper stickers, mugs, t-shirts, and they are all on sale at the Fund Development Department. Call us at 502-6321 to make your purchases today. Finally, we would like to hear from you. If you have ideas or suggestions on how you can continue to improve upon these monthly sessions, please email us at alumni@btvi.edu.bs. On a personal note, your prayers are requested for Ms. Kadrin Carey, our 2021 alum who usually give these updates, as she's not feeling well at this time. I now take this opportunity to say thank you once again for attending this month's Speaker Series. And I look forward to seeing you again next month. Same time, same place, same link. Good night, everybody.
Thank you and good night all.
Good night. Great presentation.
Good
Yes.
night.
Good night.
Job well done to all. Good person.